The vast echoing chamber of the Galactic Empire's High Council fell silent as the human ambassador, Captain Alana Reyes, stepped forward with purpose. Her footsteps reverberated against the cold metallic floors, a rhythmic echo that commanded attention. Hundreds of alien eyes, some glowing, others insect-like, a few eerily humanoid, tracked her progress with a mix of intrigue, skepticism, and disdain. She was here on behalf of Earth, standing as the sole representative of humanity amid this vast and ancient assembly of intergalactic powers, and she knew every move she made today would alter the course of history. Taking a steadying breath, Alana stopped just before the raised dais where the Empire's ruling body, the High Council, sat. Among them was the imposing figure of Lord Crix, the High Arbiter. A creature with scaled skin and a hulking frame, Crix leaned forward, his 6 yellow eyes narrowing as he studied her, a slow smirk forming on his face. The council chamber was lit with a dim ambient glow that barely illuminated the rows upon rows of alien dignitaries. Their silhouettes shifted in the shadows, some murmuring quietly in languages incomprehensible to human ears. Alana cleared her throat and raised her head high. Esteemed members of the High Council, I stand before you today, not as a mere emissary of humanity, but as a harbinger of change. A ripple of laughter and scornful muttering moved through the assembly. Lord Crix's smirk broadened, and he exchanged glances with several council members, clearly amused. But Alana held her ground, ignoring the derision that filled the room. For too long, humanity has observed your conquests and your oppression from afar, she continued, her voice unwavering. We have watched as you strip entire worlds of their resources, crush civilizations underfoot, and reshape star systems to your whims. But those days of silent witness are over. Humanity has a message for the Empire. You have crossed the line. The laughter ceased. The council chamber became deadly quiet, and the air grew charged with tension. Alana could feel the eyes of countless beings boring into her, as if they could silence her with sheer intimidation. But she'd trained for this moment, steeled herself for whatever response they might give. High Arbiter Crix leaned forward, his expression now serious, though his eyes gleamed with a predatory amusement. An ultimatum? Crix asked, his voice a low, resonant growl that reverberated throughout the hall. From humanity, a species barely a century into interstellar travel thinks it can lecture the Galactic Empire. Alana met his gaze without flinching. We come before you as a united force. We come in peace, seeking respect and mutual recognition. But if respect cannot be granted, we have other means. More murmurs filled the chamber, and some council members shifted uneasily. Not all in the Empire were as quick to dismiss humanity's potential. Lord Crix, however, only seemed further amused. You overestimate yourselves, human, he sneered, glancing at his colleagues. Your species is little more than an infant playing with fire, on the cusp of self-destruction. That is where you are mistaken, Lord Crix, Alana replied smoothly. Humanity has endured adversity and risen stronger with each challenge. We have not only survived but thrived in environments where others would have perished. Underestimating us may be your greatest error. The air in the chamber grew thicker, each word Alana spoke pressing upon the council's smug composure. It was clear that her confidence was unsettling them, and the silence that stretched after her statement was weighted with disbelief. A representative from the Xenaric Dominion, a slender creature with crystalline skin that reflected the dim lighting in colorful prisms, broke the silence. Her voice was melodic but laced with disdain. And if we were to ignore this ultimatum? She asked, arching a translucent eyebrow. Then you will witness the full extent of humanity's resolve, Alana replied. We will defend ourselves, our territories, and our people without hesitation. Lord Crix shook his head, chuckling softly. You speak as if your species is our equal. Do you truly believe you could stand against the might of the Empire, against a force that has dominated this galaxy for millennia? Alana remained unyielding. Yes, we are prepared to do whatever it takes. Another murmur spread through the council chamber, some of the council members exchanging uneasy glances. It was unusual for a species as young as humanity to challenge the Galactic Empire so openly. Their boldness was, at the very least, intriguing, but for Crix it was nothing short of an insult. You should be grateful we allow your people to remain unmolested on your small blue planet, he sneered. Our patience with your kind has been generous, but I see that it was a mistake. Perhaps it is time to remind humanity of its place in the galaxy. Alana clenched her fists, every fiber of her being resisting the urge to retaliate. She knew she was being tested, provoked, but she refused to let the council see any sign of weakness. Instead, she lifted her chin, her gaze unwavering. Consider this your last warning. she said firmly. Withdraw from our systems, cease your incursions, and grant autonomy to the worlds you've enslaved. Fail to comply, and the consequences will be severe. At that, the council chamber erupted into laughter. The arrogance of these ancient beings, so deeply entrenched in their own superiority, was palpable. Even the most diplomatic of council members could not hide their amusement at the idea of humanity posing any kind of threat to their rule. "You overstep, human," Crix declared, rising from his seat with an air of finality. "You have no authority here. You have no power. Leave this council immediately before we decide to eradicate your species for its insolence." Alana's expression remained impassive, but her eyes blazed with determination. She knew her words were planted, like seeds in a hostile landscape, seeds that with time might take root. "As you wish, Lord Crix," she said, her tone measured and calm. "But remember this day. Remember that we came to you with a chance for peace. The galaxy will remember your decision, and it will be you who bears the weight of what's to come." With those words, Alana turned on her heel, striding out of the council chamber with her head held high. The doors closed behind her, leaving the council in a stunned silence. It was clear that she had left an impression, one that the Galactic Empire would soon find impossible to ignore. In the empty corridors of the Imperial complex, Alana allowed herself a small sigh of relief. She had delivered humanity's final message. Now, the galaxy would see just how far humanity was willing to go when pushed too far, and she knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Back in the Galactic Empire's High Council chamber, the atmosphere remained tense even after Alana Reyes's departure. Council members sat in silence, processing the audacity of the ultimatum they had just received. High Arbiter Lord Crix glanced around, a smirk slowly returning to his face as he observed the reactions of his peers. "Imagine," he scoffed, breaking the silence, "humans, an insignificant species from a backwater planet daring to challenge us. It is beyond laughable." Some council members chuckled, their amusement masking the unease that had quietly seeped in. Others remained quiet, exchanging uncertain glances. They were aware that humanity's message was bolder than anything they'd expected from such a young race, but few would admit to considering the possibility that the humans might have something to back it up. High Counselor Thera, a figure known for her strategic insight, cleared her throat. She was a tall, silver-skinned being with a web of veins glowing faintly beneath her translucent skin, giving her an ethereal appearance. "Lord Crix, while I agree that their threats are misplaced," she began, choosing her words carefully, "we should not ignore the fact that they were bold enough to come here. Human persistence has surprised us before. I believe we should monitor their movements." Lord Crix let out a dismissive laugh. "Counselor Thera, do you seriously think a species that only recently discovered interstellar travel could threaten us?" Thera hesitated. "Perhaps not directly, but consider the nature of their approach. A species unafraid to address us with such audacity may have allies or weapons we are unaware of." Across the chamber, a soft murmur rippled as the counselors considered Thera's words. She was, after all, respected for her caution. Crix's smirk faltered as he noticed that several members appeared to take her suggestion seriously. "You would have us believe," Crix said, his tone dripping with disdain, "that we, the rulers of this galaxy, should concern ourselves with a species barely advanced enough to leave their own solar system? They may be bold, yes, but they are nothing more than insects flinging empty threats at giants." Another counselor, a dark-scaled creature from the Vargan Dominion, shifted uneasily. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully as he looked toward Crix. "There is merit in examining the potential consequences of ignoring them entirely," he said. "If they have developed advanced technology, we could suffer casualties before quelling their resistance. It would be prudent to take measures to secure our dominion over their system." Crix waved a dismissive hand. "Send a patrol to the human systems. Let them see the true might of the Empire. If they insist on testing our strength, we shall leave nothing of their species but dust and echoes." The counselors exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement, while others appeared reluctant. Still, Crix's suggestion resonated with the core belief that their rule was unassailable. Yet beneath this facade, Thera and a few others could sense the subtle shift that Alana's presence had stirred. Crix raised his voice to address the entire council. "I propose we send a fleet of our finest warships to the human sectors. If they refuse to surrender, we will demonstrate the price of defiance. They will see that their threats mean nothing." The counselors who had hesitated moments before now looked to each other, reassured by the unity of purpose. The echoes of their agreement reverberated throughout the chamber, solidifying the Empire's decision. No race, they reasoned, could resist their might and survive. Least of all, one as inconsequential as humanity. A moment later, the decision was formalized. The Empire's fleet would head toward human space, a show of force intended to make humanity's leaders reconsider their ultimatum. The council's session adjourned, and the representatives began to disperse, their whispers filled with intrigue and curiosity about this unexpected turn. As the councilors departed, Lord Crix strode through the grand corridors of the council hall, trailed by his most trusted advisor, a wiry insectoid figure named Calrex. Crix's posture radiated arrogance as he spoke to his advisor. "Mark my words, Calrex," he said, his tone tinged with contempt. "The humans will grovel before us once they see our fleet amassing at the borders of their systems. They will beg for mercy, and we will grant them none." Calrex, however, seemed uneasy. Though he didn't dare openly contradict his superior, he knew the humans' tenacity from prior encounters in minor skirmishes. He'd witnessed their surprising resilience firsthand, but he chose his words carefully. "Yes, my lord, but perhaps we should allow our operatives to assess any potential technological developments among the humans. There have been reports, unverified of course, of advancements." Crix glanced at him, scoffing. "Advancements? From them? What could those primitive creatures possibly develop that would concern us? Let them play with their toys, Calrex. We have dealt with far greater threats than them." Calrex's mandibles twitched, but he kept silent, nodding in agreement. Crix continued striding down the corridors, issuing orders for the fleet's deployment, entirely confident in their victory. As far as he was concerned, the Council's power remained unchallenged. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, word of humanity's ultimatum began to spread through various species and factions subjugated by the Empire. Those who'd grown weary under the Empire's relentless rule heard of humanity's bold stance, sparking a glimmer of hope they hadn't dared feel in ages. On countless worlds, whispers circulated of a small, defiant race that had openly challenged the High Council and stood unbroken. The seeds of doubt in the Empire's unassailable strength had begun to take root. Humanity's ultimatum resonated with some of the Empire's oppressed subjects. It was audacious, reckless even, but it also symbolized a resistance they had longed for. On several Empire-controlled worlds, citizens dared to dream of a galaxy where they weren't shackled to an oppressive regime, where they could stand alongside others without fear of annihilation. Unaware of the ripples her words had caused, Alana Reyes returned to her ship. Her expression was resolute as she contacted Admiral Eliara Tanaka, leader of Earth's strategic forces. Tanaka's face appeared on the screen, a look of quiet confidence etched across her features. "It went as we expected," Alana said without preamble. "They dismissed us, but the message was delivered." Admiral Tanaka nodded. "We expected as much. Lord Crix will likely retaliate with a show of force. He'll send a fleet to intimidate us, and if I know him, he'll expect an easy victory. He has no idea what we're truly capable of." Alana's gaze was unwavering. "We're ready, Admiral. Every defense, every countermeasure. They think we're bluffing. They'll learn the truth soon enough." The Admiral's eyes hardened. "Good. They believe us weak, but that will be their downfall. We'll prepare the fleet to meet them. The Empire's arrogance will be its undoing." With that, they ended the transmission, and Alana felt a surge of determination. She had seen the disdain in the Councilor's eyes, the dismissal of humanity's potential, and it only fueled her resolve. Earth had endured trials before, but none like this. Yet she knew, as did every soldier, every scientist, and every leader on Earth, that they would not stand down. They had delivered their message, and soon the Empire would discover that humanity's resolve was far stronger than they could have ever imagined. In the quiet darkness of space, fleets began to mobilize on both sides, the first steps of a conflict that would echo across the stars. Humanity's strength lay not in numbers but in their unity, and the power of a resolve that the Empire was still too blind to see. They would soon learn what it meant to cross that line. In the shadows of Earth's outermost defenses, hidden among asteroid fields and icy moons, humanity's greatest secret was stirring. Beneath the surface of an unassuming asteroid in the Kuiper Belt lay the entrance to the Spectre command base. Within this hollowed-out fortress, a fleet like no other waited in silence, cloaked in secrecy and armed with the technology Earth had spent decades developing in preparation for this very day. At the heart of the operation stood Admiral Eliara Tanaka. Known for her strategic brilliance and unyielding resolve, Tanaka was the architect of the Spectre fleet. She stood in the command center, surrounded by an array of holographic displays, each one glowing with information on ship positions, coordinates, and logistical reports. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned each screen, taking in the readiness of her forces. To her right, Commander Jace Morin, a seasoned officer with years of combat experience, observed the preparations with admiration. "Admiral, I have to admit, seeing it all come together like this, it's something," he said, his tone respectful. Tanaka gave a rare smile, her focus unwavering. "It's more than that, Commander. This is our future, and it's time we showed the galaxy exactly what we've been preparing for." She pressed a button on the console, and the dimly lit command center shifted as the holographic display changed, bringing up a visual of the fleet. The Spectre fleet, sleek, dark, and ominous, consisted of hundreds of starships outfitted with Earth's most advanced stealth technology. Each ship had been designed to avoid detection, a feat that had required humanity's brightest minds and years of covert research. Their hulls absorbed sensor signals, rendering them invisible to standard tracking systems. It was a fleet made to strike from the shadows. Admiral Tanaka nodded at Commander Morin, her expression one of pride mixed with a steely resolve. "For years, the Empire has believed us weak, Commander. They've watched us from afar, cataloging our development and assessing our military. But what they've seen is only the surface. Today, we reveal the true strength of humanity." Commander Morin leaned forward, his gaze intense. "It's incredible, Admiral. These ships, it's like nothing they've ever seen. The Empire has no idea what's waiting for them." Tanaka's gaze didn't waver. "That's exactly the point. The Empire has grown arrogant, blind to the possibility that anyone could challenge them. They've relied on intimidation and brute force for centuries, assuming that no other species could stand against them. But humanity has always been different. We don't accept domination." The lights in the command center dimmed further as Tanaka signaled to her crew, "Initiate cloak sequence on all ships. Prepare the fleet for deployment." On the massive holographic screen, each ship in the Spectre fleet blinked out of sight as their cloaking devices activated. One by one, the sleek warships disappeared into the darkness, leaving only empty space on the display. It was a sight that filled the command center with a quiet sense of power, a silent promise of what was to come. As the last ship vanished from sight, Commander Morin looked to Tanaka. "Admiral, the fleet is fully cloaked and ready for orders." Tanaka gave a single nod. "Good. Begin Operation Shadowfall." The holographic display shifted, showing a map of the nearby Empire territories. Humanity's Spectre fleet would be strategically positioned in these regions, close enough to make a coordinated strike, but far enough to avoid immediate detection. This was a high-stakes gamble. If the fleet was discovered too early, the Empire would be ready for them. But Tanaka had faith in the preparation and secrecy that had gone into this mission. "Operation Shadowfall is designed to show them what we're capable of," Tanaka said, her tone low but fierce. "We're not just defending our planet, we're striking back. They thought they could intimidate us, send their fleet to our borders and watch us tremble. But instead, we're going to show them what it means to face a united Earth." The ships of the Spectre fleet began to disperse, maneuvering silently into positions within Empire-held sectors. Each vessel's cloaking field held strong as they navigated the dark reaches of space. As they approached their designated coordinates, tension hung in the air aboard every ship, a collective readiness for the inevitable confrontation. On board the fleet's flagship, the UEES Phantom, Captain Arya Calder stood at the helm, watching as her crew operated in perfect synchrony. She had been one of the first to join the Spectre fleet, recruited for her tactical expertise and unflinching loyalty to Earth's mission. "Captain, all ships report cloaking systems at full capacity," her lieutenant reported. "Excellent," Calder replied, her gaze focused on the void outside. "We hold position here and await the signal. Let the Empire come to us." As the Spectre fleet waited in the dark, an ominous message was broadcast across all Empire-controlled channels. The message, transmitted from Earth's hidden outpost, was simple yet defiant. "This is Earth's final message to the Empire. You crossed the line. You will not find us cowering. You will find us ready. Withdraw or face the consequences." The message rippled through the Empire's ranks, reaching both military leaders and citizens alike. On distant worlds, whispers began to spread of humanity's unyielding stance. Some scoffed, dismissing the warning as mere bravado from a weak species, but others listened with growing unease. Back on the UEES Phantom, Captain Calder watched as the message was relayed to her and the rest of the fleet. A slow smile spread across her face. "Let them scoff. They won't be laughing for long." Across the fleet, captains and crews prepared themselves, checking weapon systems and shields, running diagnostics on their cloaking devices, and reviewing battle protocols. This would be the moment that humanity revealed its true strength. The Spectre fleet was a message in itself, a force forged in secrecy, ready to unleash a power the Empire had never anticipated. As the fleet lay in wait, Admiral Tanaka monitored the Empire's response from the command center. Her jaw clenched as she watched their ships begin to shift positions, moving toward the outer human territories. They had taken the bait, exactly as she'd predicted. Phase 1 is complete, she said to her officers. The Empire believes they're coming to crush a weak resistance, but they're walking into a trap. Prepare for Phase 2. Commander Morin leaned in, a glint of excitement in his eyes. And when do we strike, Admiral? Tanaka's gaze was fierce. When they're close enough to feel the full weight of our power. As the Empire's fleet advanced, each step brought them closer to humanity's hidden forces. The Spectre fleet lay in silence, cloaked in the dark void, waiting. They were more than ready. This was what they had trained for. The moment they had prepared for in endless simulations and countless drills. In her command seat, Admiral Tanaka took a deep breath. Soon, she murmured, almost to herself, they'll learn what it means to provoke us. For years, humanity had hidden its true potential, choosing patience and secrecy over open confrontation. But today, that silence would end. The Spectre fleet was a reminder to the galaxy. Earth was not defenseless, and they would not be conquered without a fight. The Empire's fleet continued its approach, unaware of the deadly force lying in wait. Humanity's ships held their positions, cloaked and silent, ready to strike with precision and vengeance. This was no longer a game of intimidation. It was the beginning of a battle that would shake the galaxy, a battle in which humanity would finally show its strength to those who dared to threaten them. As the Empire's fleet continued its advance toward the human territories, signals were transmitted across the galaxy to hidden cells in various alien systems under the Empire's rule. These messages carried instructions encrypted with codes known only to humanity's closest allies and covert operatives who had waited in silence for this very moment. It was time for the Empire to feel the consequences of underestimating the resilience and determination of the oppressed. On planets scattered throughout the Empire's domain, dormant cells of insurgents and former soldiers loyal to their lost worlds prepared to take action. They were part of an intricate web of allies who had suffered the Empire's iron grip for generations and had harbored the faint hope of liberation. The call to arms had been sent, and across these planets small rebellions began to flare up. On Nirak II, a planet rich in resources and long forced into servitude by the Empire, miners and workers abandoned their posts. Led by one of humanity's operatives, a former engineer named Lyra Chen, they stormed the Empire's facilities, disabling production lines and sabotaging supply chains critical to the Empire's military efforts. Lyra had trained these workers to disassemble their own machinery and turn the tools of their oppression into weapons. In the capital city, banners of rebellion were raised as the people took to the streets. The Empire's officials attempted to restore order, but they were quickly overwhelmed by the sheer number of people, emboldened by humanity's audacious defiance. Meanwhile, on Serac IV, the counselors who had served the Empire as puppets were overthrown in a swift coup led by local militia leaders. For years, Serac IV had been one of the Empire's most important outposts, responsible for monitoring the activity on nearby planets and enforcing strict control over neighboring systems. Now, in a matter of hours, the Empire's stronghold was slipping from their grasp. The insurgents on Serac IV had been provided with specialized communication devices from Earth, allowing them to coordinate their strikes precisely and avoid Empire surveillance. As they moved through the city, disabling Empire-controlled technology and reclaiming their city's defenses, the Empire's forces on the planet began to retreat, realizing they were outmatched and outnumbered. Back aboard the UEES Phantom, Captain Arya Calder monitored the status of these rebellions with growing satisfaction. Humanity's web of alliances had been dormant for years, but the moment they had trained for was finally unfolding. She watched as updates poured in from various systems: sabotage on mining planets, uprisings in major urban centers, and liberated facilities no longer supplying the Empire. The coordinated nature of the uprisings caught the Empire off guard, their forces stretched thin across multiple worlds. It was a logistical nightmare for their commanders, who struggled to understand how seemingly docile and compliant subjects had suddenly turned against them with such precision. Their attempts to call for reinforcements were met with disruption, as humanity's allies intercepted transmissions and jammed communication channels. On the bridge of the UEES Phantom, Calder's communications officer turned to her with a report. "Captain, we're receiving word from the insurgents on Nirak II. They've taken control of the main energy facility and are cutting off power to Empire outposts. Empire forces are scattering." Calder nodded, her satisfaction tempered with resolve. Good, we need to keep the pressure on. Let them feel the strength of a united rebellion. It's only a matter of time before the Empire realizes they're in over their heads. As the uprisings gained momentum, the Spectre fleet, still cloaked and hidden, waited patiently for the Empire's fleet to advance closer. The fleet's flagship, UES Phantom, maintained constant communication with Earth's command, updating them on the status of the insurgencies and awaiting further instructions from Admiral Tanaka. At the command center within the hidden asteroid base, Admiral Tanaka observed the unfolding chaos with a keen eye. Her plan was working. The Empire, already stretched across a vast territory, was facing a multi-front uprising that would demand their attention and resources. Every officer in her command center moved with calculated precision, monitoring the rebels' progress and preparing the fleet for the next phase of their operation. We're receiving reports of panic across multiple sectors, Commander Jace Morin reported to the Admiral, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. The Empire's officials are scrambling to contain the uprisings. Their forces are already beginning to reposition, but they're leaving their approach to Earth vulnerable in the process. Perfect, Tanaka replied, her tone as calm as ever. This is just the beginning. Once they're disoriented and spread too thin, we'll make our move. She turned to her communications officer. Prepare to signal the fleet. It's time for the Spectre fleet to engage. As the Empire's fleet advanced toward human space, the Spectre fleet's ships, each one hidden under cloaking fields, moved silently to intercept. The Empire, unaware of the force lying in wait, continued their approach. Confident in their numbers and the power they held over countless worlds, they had assumed that humanity's resistance would be little more than a minor skirmish, easily subdued by the show of force. But as the first wave of Empire ships crossed into humanity's territory, they were met not with surrender, but with an attack of terrifying precision. In one swift strike, the Spectre fleet uncloaked and unleashed a barrage of energy pulses and electromagnetic missiles, aimed directly at the engines and communication systems of the Empire's ships. The assault was calculated to disable, not destroy, leaving the Empire's fleet stranded and unable to communicate with their reinforcements. The sudden onslaught caught the Empire's forces off guard. Ship by ship, their engines went dark. Their systems shut down, leaving them floating aimlessly in space. For the first time, the Empire felt the sting of a carefully planned, technologically superior ambush. Captain Calder's voice echoed through the communications channel. All units stay on target. Disable their ships and leave them stranded. Let them realize the cost of crossing us. Aboard one of the Empire's battleships, the crew struggled to regain control. Alarms blared as their engineers frantically attempted to reboot systems and re-establish communication. Their commander, a seasoned officer named Commander Voss, watched in horror as one by one, his fleet was incapacitated. Impossible, Voss muttered, watching as the Spectre fleet moved with calculated grace, evading every attempt to counterattack. How did they know exactly where to strike? How could they possibly? Realization dawned on him, and the horror on his face deepened. Humanity had been preparing for this confrontation, developing technologies and tactics that the Empire had never anticipated. What they had taken as a show of bravado had actually been the unveiling of a trap, one the Empire had walked into blindly. As the first wave of Empire ships lay helpless, disabled and drifting, the Spectre fleet pulled back, cloaking once again, leaving the remaining Empire forces in disarray. Captain Calder watched with satisfaction as her ship faded into the shadows. Let this be a warning to them, she said quietly, as her crew around her exhaled in relief and triumph. We're not the ones who will be running from this fight. Back at the Empire's High Council, word of the skirmishes and coordinated uprisings began to reach the ears of their leaders. Panic and disbelief spread as reports confirmed that their once loyal territories were no longer as docile as they had thought, and that humanity's forces were far stronger, far more calculated than anticipated. Unseen and unstoppable, humanity had struck the first blow in a battle that would send shockwaves across the galaxy. The Empire, accustomed to domination, had finally encountered a force that would not submit, and in the darkness of space, humanity's fleets prepared for the next move, knowing the fight was far from over. As reports of humanity's counterattack spread, shock and disbelief rippled through the ranks of the Empire's leadership. The seemingly primitive species they had dismissed had, in a single coordinated strike, turned their assumptions upside down. Stranded ships, Broken communication lines and fractured order now plagued the Empire's forces, which were left scattered across contested territories. The Empire had been the unquestioned ruler of the galaxy for generations, but in these last hours, humanity had shaken the foundations of their power. In the Empire's Grand Council chamber, Lord Crix stood before the assembly of officials, his face contorted in a mixture of disbelief and rage. Around him, counselors and military advisors spoke in panicked tones, demanding explanations, strategies, and immediate actions to regain control. "What is happening?" Crix's voice boomed, his anger echoing in the vast hall. "How is it possible that a species as insignificant as humanity has managed to cripple our forces in such a short time?" Beside him, Calrex, his advisor, shifted uncomfortably. He had long been uneasy about humanity's potential for resilience, but he had kept his concerns mostly to himself, wary of Crix's disdain for caution. Now, though, his instincts were screaming at him to take this threat seriously. "My lord," Calrex said, carefully choosing his words, "it appears humanity has developed military capabilities that exceed our projections. Their tactics indicate preparation and technological advancements beyond what we were led to believe." Crix shot him a withering glare. "Are you suggesting that we underestimated a species as young as they are? That we, the Empire, are unprepared to face them?" Calrex hesitated but held his ground. "I am suggesting that we need to approach this with the same seriousness as we would any other threat, my lord. Humanity's tactics are far from reckless. They're calculated, strategic, and precise. This is not the behavior of a primitive civilization." Crix clenched his fists, his anger barely contained. "Enough. If they want a war, they will have one. But this time, we will bring the full force of the Empire to bear on them, mobilize every available fleet, show them the true power of the Empire." Around him, the counselors nodded, though some exchanged uneasy glances. They had already dispatched a significant force to human territories, and mobilizing more would mean pulling resources from other regions, leaving key Empire-held planets vulnerable. But fear of Crix's wrath silenced any objections, and orders were given for an unprecedented mobilization. Across the Empire, messages were sent to military outposts, instructing commanders to prepare their fleets. Within hours, vast armadas began to assemble, with ships from distant sectors moving into position. The Empire was determined to crush this uprising quickly, to remind the galaxy why they were feared. Back on Earth, humanity's leaders watched the unfolding situation with grim determination. Admiral Eliara Tanaka sat in the command center at Spectre Base, her gaze fixed on the holographic display showing the approaching fleets. Each ship, each advancing line of Empire vessels, was marked in red, a steady flow of power moving toward human territories. The full force of the Empire was coming for them, and Earth was about to be tested in a way it had never been before. Commander Jace Morin stood beside Tanaka, reading the incoming data. "Admiral, they're pulling in forces from across their territories. Their armada will be unlike anything we've encountered." Tanaka nodded. "They're desperate. We've shaken their confidence, and now they're trying to compensate with overwhelming force, but they're making a mistake." Morin looked at her curiously. "How so?" Tanaka's eyes narrowed as she studied the display. "They're concentrating everything here right on our doorstep. It's a risk that could cost them more than they realize. If we can keep them occupied long enough, we'll buy our allies time to strengthen their hold in the systems they've liberated." Across human territory, defenses were activated, and evacuation protocols were enacted for vulnerable colonies. Humanity's fleets moved into position, fortifying key points and laying traps that had been carefully prepared over months of clandestine planning. Unlike the Empire's traditional tactics of brute force, humanity's approach was surgical, anticipating the weaknesses in the Empire's overextended lines. Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth, people from all walks of life prepared for what could be the final stand. From scientists and engineers to soldiers and civilian volunteers, everyone contributed to the war effort. Factories retooled to produce advanced weapons, emergency shelters were stocked, and every able-bodied person received basic training to defend their homes. In the heart of New Berlin, Earth's largest city and the primary base of operations for the Defense Initiative, Captain Lyra James addressed a group of fresh recruits. Many of them had little or no combat experience, but their faces reflected a shared determination. "Today," she began, her voice steady and unwavering, "we stand at a crossroads. The Empire believes they can crush us, that we will bow before their might as so many others have. But they don't understand us. They don't understand that for every life they take, for every home they destroy, we only become stronger. They've forced us to fight, And so we will, not because we want war, but because we demand our right to exist. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Lyra could see the resolve in their eyes. This was humanity's defining moment, and they were ready to defend their world with everything they had. Back in orbit, the Spectre fleet moved into its defensive positions. The flagship, UEES Phantom, was stationed at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, poised to meet the first wave of the Empire's assault. Captain Arya Calder stood on the bridge, her jaw set in grim anticipation as she surveyed her crew. "Remember your training," she said, her voice carrying a quiet strength. "Today, we show the Empire what it means to cross us. Stay focused, trust your team, and remember, this isn't just a battle, this is a message." As the Empire's fleet drew closer, humanity's defenses sprang to life. Automated turrets, planetary shields, and interceptor squadrons were activated, creating a multi-layered barrier around Earth. The skies above filled with ships as both sides braced for the first strike, a silent standoff in the void of space. The Empire's ships advanced in formation, confident in their firepower and overwhelming numbers. But as they closed in, they encountered the first wave of humanity's defense. High-speed interceptor drones equipped with advanced EMP missiles. The drones streaked through space, targeting the Empire's lead ships and disrupting their systems. On board one of the Empire's battleships, Commander Voss struggled to make sense of the chaos. Screens flickered as systems rebooted, alarms blared, and his crew scrambled to restore order. "Status report," he shouted, his tone laced with frustration. "Commander, they've disabled several of our forward shields. Our targeting systems are struggling to keep up with their interceptors," an officer replied, panic edging his voice. Voss clenched his teeth. "Then push forward. We'll break through their defenses if we have to. Humanity cannot possibly stand against the might of the Empire." But the reality was different. As his ships pushed through the interference, they were met with another wave of human forces. The Spectre fleet, waiting in formation, unleashed a barrage of energy cannons and railguns. Each shot was precise, targeting the Empire's weaknesses, pushing their ships back with every strike. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Tanaka watched as the battle unfolded. Her voice, calm and steady, echoed across the communications network. "Stay on target. Every move, every shot counts. We're not here to just survive. We're here to win." The Empire had expected an easy conquest, but they were facing a force prepared to fight until the last breath. Humanity was making its stand, a relentless, unbreakable wall against the tide of oppression. For the first time, the Empire's forces felt not the rush of inevitable victory, but the cold grip of fear. The battle was far from over, but humanity's spirit blazed like a beacon across the stars, refusing to be extinguished. As the battle raged above Earth, humanity's resilience began to shift the momentum. Each carefully calculated strike, each tactical maneuver honed in secret, reminded the Empire that they were facing more than a simple resistance. Humanity's precision and unexpected strength were not only breaking through the Empire's offensive, but were also inspiring hope across the galaxy. Back in the command center, Admiral Tanaka stood over the holographic map, her eyes sharp as she coordinated the fleet's next moves. The Empire's strategy had been calculated, confident in sheer numbers and firepower, but humanity was far from outmatched. They had prepared for this with an understanding of the Empire's predictable approach, and now that preparation was paying off. "Admiral," Commander Morin interrupted, his voice filled with excitement, "we're receiving an incoming transmission from the Avery Alliance. They're requesting an immediate secure line with you." Tanaka's brow furrowed as she looked at the display. The Avery Alliance, known for its neutrality and technological prowess, had kept its distance from galactic conflicts for generations. That they were reaching out now in the heat of humanity's defense could only mean one thing. They had seen the Empire's vulnerability and were ready to intervene. "Patch them through," Tanaka ordered, her voice steady yet hopeful. The hologram shifted, and the image of Chancellor Zira, leader of the Avori Alliance, appeared. Her translucent, glowing skin and serene expression were trademarks of her race, known for their wisdom and insight. Zira's voice was soft but powerful, reverberating through the command center. "Admiral Tanaka," she began, "we have been observing your stand against the Empire, and we must commend your courage and resourcefulness. The galaxy has long awaited a species with both the strength and integrity to challenge their oppression. We believe humanity may be that force." Tanaka straightened, meeting Zira's gaze with gratitude tempered by caution. "We appreciate your words, Chancellor Zira, but as you can see, We are in the midst of a fight for our very existence. How can we trust that the Avori are willing to stand beside us now? Zira's expression was unwavering. The Avori Alliance has long respected freedom and autonomy. The Empire's dominance has left our borders untouched, but their expansion concerns us all. We recognize that if humanity falls, so too may our ability to remain independent. We offer an alliance, Admiral. Our technology, our resources, and our people stand ready to join you in this fight. Tanaka's heart raced as she processed the significance of Zira's words. An alliance with the Avori would mean an infusion of advanced technologies, shielding systems, energy weapons, and navigational aids that surpassed even humanity's innovations. With the Avori at their side, humanity had a real chance to turn this struggle into a victory. Chancellor Zira, Tanaka replied, her voice filled with determination. On behalf of Earth and all free species fighting for liberation, we accept your alliance. Together, we will ensure the Empire's reign ends here. Zira gave a nod of acknowledgement, her calm demeanor hiding a spark of intensity. Prepare for reinforcements, Admiral. Our ships will be arriving within the hour. As the transmission ended, Tanaka addressed her command team, who were buzzing with excitement and renewed hope. This is it, everyone. The Avori Alliance is with us now. Prepare for incoming support. The tide is about to turn. Across the battlefield, the Spectre fleet received updates on their new allies' imminent arrival. Pilots and crews exchanged looks of astonishment and exhilaration. They had been bracing for an all-out defense, but now, with the Avori's support, they could go on the offensive. Minutes later, a vast array of gleaming Avori ships appeared out of hyperspace. Their vessels, crafted with an otherworldly elegance, shimmered with energy fields and advanced shielding. The Avori's flagship, a massive crescent-shaped vessel bristling with defensive turrets and energy disruptors, took its place beside humanity's own fleet. Captain Calder, aboard the UEES Phantom, took in the sight with awe. Unbelievable, she murmured, watching as the Avori ships maneuvered with precise, graceful movements. This alliance could be exactly what we need to drive the Empire back. The Empire's commanders, observing the arrival of the Avori forces, realized the severity of their situation. For the first time, the Empire was facing a coalition that matched their strength and possibly exceeded it in both determination and skill. Frantic orders were relayed across their fleet as they scrambled to regroup. Aboard one of the Empire's dreadnoughts, Commander Voss stared at the holographic display, his eyes wide with horror. How did this happen? He stammered, watching the Avori ships coordinate with humanity's fleet in a seamless display of unity. Voss's lieutenant, struggling to mask his own fear, replied, "The Avori's arrival changes everything, Commander. They're using energy disruptors on our forward shields. We're taking heavy losses." Voss slammed his fist on the console. "Then pull back. We must regroup." But as the Empire's ships attempted to retreat, humanity and the Avori closed in, launching a coordinated offensive. The Spectre fleet and Avori forces worked in perfect harmony, with human ships using precision strikes to disable engines and targeting systems, while the Avori ships deployed their disruptors and energy pulses, neutralizing the Empire's shielding. Inside the Avori flagship, Chancellor Zira stood with her officers, issuing commands with calm authority. Her ships moved like a perfectly synchronized orchestra, each maneuver designed to cut off the Empire's escape routes and leave them vulnerable to humanity's relentless attacks. "Let them understand," Zira said quietly, her gaze fixed on the battlefield, "that today they face not just humanity, but a united galaxy. Their reign ends now." In the skies above Earth, the battle took on a new tone. Where moments ago humanity had been struggling to hold the line, now they were pushing forward, driving the Empire's ships back with calculated ferocity. Humanity and the Avori Alliance together were proving to be a force the Empire had never expected, and one they could not contain. In the command center, Tanaka watched the battle's progression, her heart swelling with pride and resolve. For so long, Earth had been preparing to stand alone, but now, as she saw the Avori ships flying alongside humanity's vessels, she realized they were part of something bigger, something that transcended borders and united all free species. She opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Admiral Tanaka to all units. We are no longer fighting just for Earth. We are fighting for a future where no species lives under oppression. Push forward. Show the Empire that we will not be conquered." In the heart of the battle, Captain Calder received the message, her own resolve hardened by Tanaka's words. "All units," she called to her fleet, "the time has come. Engage with full force. Let them know they've awakened a power they cannot control. As the combined forces of humanity and the Avery pressed the Empire's fleet back, the galaxy bore witness to a moment that would change the course of history. The Empire, once unchallenged and feared, was faltering, its arrogance shattered by the unified stand of those it had oppressed. Across the galaxy, news of the Alliance spread. Civilizations that had once cowered under the Empire's shadow watched in astonishment, inspired by humanity's courage and the Avery's solidarity. Rebellion and resistance began to stir in distant systems, as oppressed species found hope in humanity's defiance. On the Empire's remaining ships, commanders and soldiers alike felt the weight of their defeat. The Empire's dominion, so vast and unquestioned, was beginning to crumble before their eyes. As the last of the Empire's retreating forces fled, battered and broken, humanity and the Avery stood victorious in the skies above Earth. They had sent a message not just to the Empire, but to the entire galaxy, that freedom was worth fighting for, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. Admiral Tanaka took a deep breath, feeling the magnitude of what they had just achieved. The battle was won, but the war was not yet over. Still, they had made a decisive strike, one that would echo across the stars, rallying free beings everywhere. In that moment, Earth stood not only as a planet defended, but as a symbol of hope for an entire galaxy. Humanity had proven that it would not surrender, and with their new allies, they had shown the Empire what it truly meant to cross them. Though humanity and the Avery Alliance had won a critical victory, the Empire was far from finished. News of the battle reached every corner of their vast territories, and across their war councils, the Empire's leaders scrambled to save what was left of their influence. The thought of being overthrown by a species they once deemed primitive was inconceivable, and in their desperation, they hatched a plan, a final gambit to regain control and reassert their power over the galaxy. In the throne room of the Empire's High Command, Lord Crix held court with his top generals and advisors. The massive chamber, usually a place of serene order, buzzed with tension. Crix's once calm demeanor was replaced by a rigid determination. He stared at the hologram of the galaxy, its colors marking the territories now slipping from his grip. Nearby, Commander Voss, freshly returned from the recent battle, stood humiliated and visibly shaken. "We are on the brink of losing control," Crix said, his voice a growl. "I want every option, every resource, and every weapon deployed. Humanity and their allies cannot be allowed to spread this rebellion." General Zara, an imposing figure with a reputation for ruthless tactics, stepped forward. "My lord, we have one last option, Project Eclipse. We have long kept it in reserve, but now may be the time to unveil its power. It's a weapon they would never anticipate." Crix turned to Zara, eyes narrowing. Project Eclipse had been a closely guarded secret, known only to the highest-ranking officials in the Empire. It was a device capable of unleashing an artificial blackout field that could envelop an entire star system, plunging everything within it into darkness and disabling every energy-based system. Ships, planetary defenses, life support systems, everything would be rendered powerless. Voss's face paled. But Project Eclipse was never meant to be used in populated areas. It would create chaos, destroy infrastructure, lead to mass casualties. "That is exactly the point," Zara replied coldly. "They believe they can defy us because they do not know true fear. They have not seen the lengths to which we are willing to go to maintain order. Project Eclipse will show them the consequences of their insolence." Crix nodded slowly, his expression hardening as he realized that desperate times called for desperate measures. "Then so be it. We will deploy Project Eclipse against Earth's allies. If they wish to stand against us, they will know the price." Orders were quickly dispatched, and within hours a convoy of stealth carriers was en route to the Avori systems, where the core of the Alliance's forces were stationed. Each carrier held components of Project Eclipse, primed for activation upon arrival. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Admiral Tanaka and her command team monitored the movements of the Empire's remaining fleet. The Avery Alliance had strengthened Earth's defenses, but Tanaka knew the Empire would retaliate. They were dealing with a regime that would stop at nothing to maintain control. In the quiet of her command room, Tanaka couldn't shake the feeling that something unprecedented was brewing. The eerie calm was shattered when an urgent transmission came through from an Avery outpost near the border of the Empire. Chancellor Zyra's image appeared on the screen, her usually calm face etched with deep concern. "Admiral Tanaka," Zyra began, her tone grave, "we have detected unusual activity on the Empire's borders. Their stealth carriers have mobilized and are headed toward Avery-controlled systems. This is not a standard offensive. They are deploying something different. Tanaka leaned forward, her mind racing. What kind of weapon could they be using? Zira's expression darkened. We are not sure, but our scientists believe it may be a form of energy suppression. We suspect that they are trying to disable our systems altogether. If they succeed, it would render us defenseless. Realizing the implications, Tanaka responded immediately. Then we need to intercept them before they reach your systems. If they manage to deploy such a weapon, the results would be catastrophic for everyone in the area. Within moments, orders were issued, and humanity's fleet joined forces with the Avery, coordinating a defensive line to intercept the Empire's convoy. As the Allied fleet sped toward the Empire's carriers, tension thickened. They were now engaged in a race against time to stop the Empire's last gambit. On board the flagship of the convoy, General Zara oversaw the preparations with ruthless efficiency. The Eclipse device, secured and primed, radiated a faint, menacing glow in the storage bay, a reminder of its terrifying capabilities. Zara addressed her officers, her voice a chilling monotone. When we reach the target, we will deploy the Eclipse device immediately. This will remind the galaxy of the Empire's strength. Prepare yourselves. Failure is not an option. But just as they neared the Avori systems, the Empire's stealth convoy detected approaching ships, human and Avori forces, moving in a precise formation. Humanity's flagship, the UEES Phantom, led the charge, its hull gleaming with reinforced armor and upgraded shielding provided by the Avery Alliance. Captain Calder's voice echoed through her ship as she addressed her crew. This is it. We're facing the Empire's most desperate move. Remember, they are cornered, and that makes them dangerous. Our mission is to stop that convoy and neutralize whatever weapon they're carrying before it reaches our allies. As humanity's fleet approached, the Empire's convoy tried to evade, but their stealth capabilities were no match for the Avery's advanced tracking systems. The Allied fleet closed in, blocking every route of escape. Aboard the UEES Phantom, Captain Calder gave the order to engage. All units, target their engines. We need to stop them in their tracks. Precision fire erupted from humanity's ships. Their railguns and energy cannons focused on disabling the Empire's convoy. The first wave of shots hit their targets, sparking explosions across the Empire's carriers as they struggled to maintain course. Inside her command ship, General Zara's expression shifted to fury. She ordered her remaining forces to defend the Eclipse device at all costs. Activate defensive measures. Do not let them near the device. The Empire's carriers returned fire, but the Allied forces pressed their advantage, exploiting every opening with relentless strikes. Slowly but surely they closed in on the lead carrier, where Zara herself commanded the mission. Realizing the convoy was losing, Zara made a split-second decision. She activated the preliminary systems of the Eclipse device, sending out a powerful pulse intended to disable the Allied ships. But to her horror, the device was met with resistance. Humanity and the Avery had prepared for the possibility of energy-based attacks, equipping their ships with experimental shielding to absorb and neutralize such pulses. On board the UEES Phantom, Calder felt the shockwave ripple through her ship. The lights flickered, but the shielding held strong. With renewed confidence, she gave the order for a final offensive push. Target their main carrier. The Eclipse device must be on board. Focus everything you've got on that ship. The Allied forces converged on Zara's carrier, hammering its defenses with concentrated firepower. Zara, now realizing that her last chance was slipping away, ordered her crew to initiate the device at full power, hoping for a final desperate strike. But before the Eclipse device could fully charge, a direct hit from the UEES Phantom struck its power core, destabilizing it. Inside the carrier, alarms blared as Zara's crew scrambled to shut down the device, but it was too late. The Eclipse device in its half-charged state began to implode, drawing everything around it into a chaotic vortex. Captain Calder watched as the Empire's main carrier began to disintegrate, pulled into the vortex it had created. She ordered her fleet to fall back, and the Allied ships quickly put distance between themselves and the imploding device. Within moments, the Eclipse device collapsed in on itself, taking the remaining Empire ships with it in a blinding explosion that briefly illuminated the vastness of space. The last desperate attempt of the Empire had failed, and its convoy was reduced to debris, scattered across the stars. Aboard the UEES Phantom, Captain Calder exhaled with relief. The threat had been neutralized. She opened a channel to Admiral Tanaka. "Admiral, the Eclipse device has been destroyed. The Empire's convoy is gone." In the command center, Tanaka's voice came over the line, filled with pride and gratitude. "Well done, Captain. With that weapon out of the way, we've broken their last hold over our allies. The Empire has nothing left but fear." As the Allied fleet regrouped, humanity and the Avori stood victorious, having thwarted the Empire's final gambit. They had not only defended their worlds, but had dismantled the last weapon the Empire had hoped to use against them. The battle was drawing to a close, and the Empire's grasp was weakening. United by a shared determination, humanity and its allies had proven that they would not yield. The Empire had gambled everything and lost. With the Eclipse device destroyed and the Empire's stealth convoy obliterated, a wave of hope spread across the galaxy. News of the Allied victory reached even the most remote systems, inspiring a surge of resistance among species that had long suffered under the Empire's rule. This was humanity's moment, and with the Avori by their side, they saw a unique opportunity to expand their alliance and deliver a final blow to the Empire. Back on Earth, Admiral Tanaka addressed a galaxy-wide broadcast from the command center. Her image transmitted to countless screens across free and oppressed worlds alike. Her face was resolute, her voice steady and determined. "To the citizens of the galaxy," she began, "today marks a turning point in our shared history. The Empire has held its grip over your worlds, your freedoms and your futures for far too long. But know this, they are not invincible. We, the people of Earth, once seen as a distant, lesser world, have shown that even the mightiest oppressors can be defeated." In the Avori capital, Chancellor Zira watched the broadcast alongside her council members. Her translucent features reflected a profound sense of purpose. The Avori had been quiet for centuries, but now, with humanity's strength and spirit leading the charge, they saw an opportunity to rally more allies to their cause. Zira turned to her advisors. "The time has come for us to gather others under our banner," Zira declared. "Send envoys to the border planets, to the free worlds, and even to those under the Empire's rule. Show them what humanity has achieved, and let them know that we will stand by their side if they choose to join us." Within hours, Avery and human envoys were dispatched across the galaxy, each carrying tales of the latest victory, the destruction of the Empire's secret weapon, and a message of hope. They visited planets on the edge of rebellion, and those that had yet to find the courage to defy the Empire. Their message was simple: unity could bring freedom. On one such planet, Tarak Prime, a world heavily exploited for its resources, the news of humanity's victory ignited a spark among the Tarakians, a proud and resilient people forced into labor camps. For years, the Empire had used their planet as a source of raw materials, stripping its landscapes and forcing its people into servitude. But as word spread that the Empire had suffered a major defeat, the Tarakians began to whisper of resistance. In a hidden underground gathering, Tarakian leaders met in secret to discuss the new possibility of liberation. At the head of the table sat Kairos, a seasoned resistance leader who had been fighting the Empire's oppression his entire life. His face, scarred and weathered, held a glimmer of hope that had long been absent. "So," he began, looking around the room at his fellow leaders, "the humans have dealt the Empire a blow that none of us dared imagine. They say the Avori stand with them, and their alliance is growing stronger by the day." One of his advisors, Mela, a fierce and sharp-witted strategist, nodded. "This could be our chance, Kairos. If we join them now, we may finally have the strength to overthrow the Empire's grip on Tarak Prime, but we need their support." Kairos leaned forward, his voice firm. "Then we will send a delegation. If they are as determined as they say, the humans and Avery will help us in our fight. We will no longer be slaves to the Empire." Within days, Kairos and his delegation arrived at an Avery-controlled outpost where Chancellor Zira had arranged a summit of new allies. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered, each bringing their stories of suffering and their hopes for freedom. Zira, along with human diplomats and fleet officers, stood at the center, listening as these species poured out their grievances against the Empire. When Kairos's turn came, he spoke with fierce passion. "For too long, the Tarakians have endured the Empire's chains. We have seen our lands pillaged, our people taken and our resources stripped away. But now, I see that we are not alone. Humanity's strength and the Avery's unity have inspired us. I stand before you not just as a Tarakian, but as one who seeks to join the galaxy in reclaiming what was taken. The crowd of representatives erupted in agreement, and Zira held up her hand to bring them back to order. The Avery, alongside humanity, vow to support every species that joins our alliance. The Empire cannot stand against a united galaxy. Together, we will rise. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Phantom, Captain Calder was overseeing the fleet's next steps. With the alliance growing rapidly, humanity and the Avery were coordinating new battle strategies, preparing to make decisive strikes against the Empire's core systems. Calder, surrounded by her officers, mapped out targets on the holographic display. We'll be coordinating with our new allies, she explained, her gaze steady. Our goal is to destabilize the Empire's remaining strongholds. By taking control of these key locations, we can dismantle their infrastructure and cut off their ability to fight back. Her officers nodded, each one inspired by the momentum humanity and its allies had built. This wasn't just a defensive battle anymore. It was a coordinated push for galactic liberation. Across the galaxy, the Empire watched in horror as system after system declared independence and joined humanity's cause. Lord Crix's advisors scrambled to regain control, but their attempts only exposed how weak their position had become. Each time they tried to suppress an uprising, they were met with stronger, coordinated resistance. On the Empire's capital planet, Crix convened an emergency council meeting, his composure slipping as he confronted the collapse of his once unquestioned authority. Enough of this chaos, he snarled. The galaxy has forgotten who we are. We need a show of force to remind them of the power of the Empire. I want every remaining fleet deployed. Crush these rebellions. If we must, we will raise their worlds to set an example. But even Crix's loyal generals hesitated. They had witnessed humanity's resilience and they knew the strength of the Avery. One of the senior commanders, General Rana, finally spoke up. My lord, humanity and the Avery have proven themselves to be formidable. If we confront them directly without a well-coordinated plan, we risk further losses that we may not recover from. The galaxy is watching. They will see us as desperate. Crix glared at Rana, his face darkening. So what do you propose? That we surrender? Rana stood her ground, her voice steady but resolute. I propose that we seek terms. Humanity and the Avery are gaining allies faster than we can suppress them. They have become a force of the people, and no amount of force will turn the galaxy back to our side. Crix's eyes burned with fury, but he knew there was truth in Rana's words. For the first time, the Empire's unshakable hold on the galaxy had been broken. Now, a decision had to be made: to continue a war they could not win, or face the reality that their reign was ending. As Crix seethed in silence, news from the front lines only confirmed his fears. More planets were declaring their allegiance to the alliance led by humanity and the Avery. Even former Empire allies, sensing the shift in power, were beginning to reconsider their loyalties. Back on Earth, Admiral Tanaka and Chancellor Zira stood together, observing the fleet of ships from various allied species gathering in orbit. The sight was breathtaking, a galaxy united not by force, but by a shared vision of freedom. Tanaka turned to Zira, her voice filled with pride. Look at them. This is what the Empire feared most, a galaxy they could no longer control. Zira nodded, her face calm yet resolute. And we will not stop here. This alliance, built from courage and unity, will become a beacon of hope for every species that dreams of a better future. As they watched the gathered fleet, a sense of triumph washed over them. The galaxy was on the cusp of change, a transformation that had been unthinkable only months before. And at the heart of it stood humanity and the Avery, leading the charge for a new era. Together they had shown the Empire that power born of oppression would never outlast the spirit of those who yearned for freedom. And in that moment, the galaxy knew that its future belonged not to tyrants, but to those who dared to hope. With each passing day, the galaxy drew closer to a historic turning point. The alliance forged by humanity and the Avery had grown into a coalition that stretched across countless systems, each bound by a common cause: the fall of the Empire. No longer isolated and fearful, species from every corner of the galaxy stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to make a final stand against a regime that had ruled through fear and domination for far too long. In the Empire's capital, Lord Crix sat brooding in the darkened chamber of his war council. His face, once marked by an almost arrogant confidence, was now marred by lines of worry and exhaustion. The capital was heavily fortified, with layers of defenses and warships circling it like a steel curtain. Yet for the first time, even Crix felt the vulnerability of his position. The council room, once filled with unquestioning loyalty, now echoed with whispers of doubt. At the head of the room, General Rana stood stoically, her gaze fixed on the holographic map that displayed the Empire's dwindling territories. She had always been one of Crix's most trusted military minds, but as she observed the power amassed by the Alliance, even her loyalty wavered. "My lord," Rana said carefully, "our spies report that the Alliance's fleet is amassing at the edge of our core systems. They are preparing for a coordinated strike. This is no longer a series of isolated attacks. It is a full-scale invasion." Crix clenched his fists, his eyes burning with a mix of rage and desperation. "We still hold the capital. As long as we control the heart of the Empire, we control its destiny. Have we activated all remaining defense protocols?" Rana nodded. "Yes, my lord. Every planetary shield, every warship, every defensive measure has been deployed. But I must remind you," she continued, her tone almost hesitant, "that humanity and their allies have shown a capacity to adapt. Their technology has advanced with startling speed, and they are united by a cause. We cannot underestimate the strength that brings them." Crix's expression darkened. "Enough. The Empire has ruled for millennia. We have faced rebellions before. This is no different." But even as he spoke, Crix knew that this was, in fact, very different. His words held no conviction, and the silence in the room was telling. His advisors and generals had seen the reports. They had watched as system after system declared its independence, and they knew that the Empire's dominance was hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Allied fleet, humanity's flagship, the UEES Phantom, prepared for the final assault. Admiral Tanaka stood on the bridge, her eyes unwavering as she reviewed the battle plan. Around her, officers from both Earth and Avery systems worked in seamless coordination. The Alliance's fleet had grown to a formidable size, each ship and crew member driven by a common determination. Captain Calder approached Tanaka, her face a mixture of resolve and excitement. "Admiral, the fleet is in formation. The Tarakians and Lyorians are readying their strike forces. Every unit is prepared to engage on your command." Tanaka took a deep breath. "We are about to enter the final chapter of this struggle, Captain. The Empire's capital has fallen back on its strongest defenses. They believe they can outlast us, that they can hold us back with sheer force, but they don't understand what they're up against." Turning to the assembled fleet via the ship's communication system, Tanaka addressed every ship in the Alliance. "To all units, this is Admiral Tanaka. Today we strike not as conquerors, but as liberators. The Empire has ruled through fear, through division, but today we prove that unity and courage are stronger than any fortress they can build. Stand ready, and know that every action we take today will echo across the galaxy." A cheer erupted across the fleet. The voices of countless species joined together in a resounding cry of defiance. Tanaka's speech ignited a fervor within every soldier, pilot, and officer. This was more than just a battle. It was the beginning of a new era. As the Alliance approached the capital, the Empire's defensive forces sprang into action. Massive battle stations, equipped with the most advanced weaponry the Empire had developed, lined the perimeter. Warships, bristling with guns and shields, filled the void, their formations tight and disciplined. But the Alliance had come prepared. In the first wave, Avery and Tarakian ships moved forward, their sleek designs weaving through enemy fire with practiced precision. Their shielding, enhanced by Avery technology, absorbed the brunt of the Empire's attacks. Behind them, humanity's heavy cruisers and dreadnoughts unleashed their full firepower, targeting the weak points in the Empire's defenses. Captain Calder led the UEES Phantom through the onslaught, her voice steady as she coordinated with Allied ships. "Target the capital's main shield generators. Once we break through their shields, we'll have an opening to reach the surface." The Phantom fired a concentrated blast, its energy beams slicing through the Empire's lines. Allied ships followed suit, focusing their fire on the shield generators. Slowly, cracks began to form in the Empire's seemingly impenetrable defenses. Explosions lit up the darkness, and one by one, the generators began to fail. On the capital planet, Crix watched the attack unfold from the safety of his command center. Alarms blared and his advisors scrambled to maintain control. For the first time, Crix felt a sliver of true fear. He had always thought of himself as untouchable, but now he saw that his empire was crumbling before his eyes. "We must reinforce the shields," he ordered, but his command was cut off by the grim-faced General Rana. "My lord," Rana began, "our defenses are failing. The Alliance has focused their fire on critical points. If they break through, we will not be able to repel them. Crix's eyes flashed with anger. Then I want every available soldier, every drone, every weapon on standby. We will not fall to these upstarts. Rana hesitated, her gaze flickering with doubt. We have lost the will of the people, my lord. They no longer believe in the Empire. They look to the Alliance for freedom. Crix's expression hardened, his pride refusing to accept what he was hearing. Then we will make them believe again. With force, if necessary. But his words held no power. Rana and the others could see the futility of his commands. Their loyalty was faltering, and the Empire's grip on its own people was slipping away. Outside, the Alliance continued its relentless advance. The second wave of the assault brought in Leorian and Tarakian fighters, their agile ships darting through the chaos to target the Empire's heavy artillery. On board the Phantom, Captain Calder received word that the Alliance had successfully breached the outer defenses. We're in, she reported to Tanaka. The main shield is down, and our forces are advancing toward the capital. Admiral Tanaka nodded, her eyes fixed on the display. All ships, proceed with the final phase. We are taking this fight to the surface. With precision and unity, the Alliance fleet pressed forward. The Empire's defenses were stretched to the breaking point, their warships scattered, their formations collapsing, and as the Alliance's ground forces began to land, the Empire's soldiers, many of whom had been forced into service, laid down their weapons, surrendering rather than fighting a battle they knew was lost. In the capital's streets, the people watched as the Alliance's forces approached, not as conquerors but as liberators. The sight of Avery ships, human soldiers and allies from every corner of the galaxy marching together filled them with hope. For the first time, they saw a future beyond the Empire's tyranny. In his command center, Crix knew it was over. His power, his empire, the dynasty he had built on fear and control, it was all slipping away. Rana turned to him, her voice steady but unyielding. My lord, it is time to surrender. For the sake of the people, for the galaxy, you must let go. Crix's face contorted with rage and despair, but as he looked into the faces of his once loyal commanders, he saw only determination and defiance. The Empire's rule had ended, and no amount of force could change that. Outside, as the Alliance forces secured the capital, a cheer rose from the people, a cheer that echoed through the streets, across the cities, and into the stars. The Empire's reign was over, and the galaxy was finally free. With the Empire's capital secured and Lord Crix's surrender echoing across the galaxy, the realization of a new era dawned on every world that had once been under the Empire's oppressive rule. Liberation was no longer a distant dream. It was a reality that stretched from one end of the galaxy to the other. And at the center of this transformation stood humanity and its allies, a coalition forged in courage, resilience, and unity. As the dust settled on the Empire's shattered remnants, representatives from the Alliance gathered for a historic assembly on the Avery homeworld. The Grand Hall, adorned with symbols from countless species, thrummed with energy as delegates from each newly liberated planet took their places. Humans, Avery, Tarakians, Lyorians, and delegates from worlds that had only recently joined the fight sat side by side. The hall was filled with the hum of voices, each one representing a unique language, culture, and perspective, a tapestry of diversity now united by a common vision for the future. Admiral Tanaka and Chancellor Zira stood at the front, prepared to address the assembly. Tanaka's heart swelled with pride as she looked out at the faces of so many who had risked everything for freedom. For her, this moment was the culmination of every battle, every sacrifice, and every act of courage that had brought them here. She stepped forward, her voice strong and clear. Citizens of the galaxy, she began. We stand here today not as conquerors but as allies. Our unity has freed us from a regime that sought to control us through fear, and now, together, we will forge a new path, a path of cooperation, of shared knowledge, and of respect. A ripple of applause filled the hall, but Tanaka held up her hand, signaling for silence. Yet we must remember that freedom comes with responsibility. We are now the custodians of a fragile peace, one that requires us to work together to heal the scars left by years of oppression. This alliance must be more than just a coalition against the Empire. It must be a foundation upon which we build a future of equality and understanding. Chancellor Zira stepped forward, her voice resonating with calm authority. We propose the formation of the Galactic Union, An interstellar council where every world, every species has a voice. No longer will decisions be made by those who hold power alone. Instead, they will be made by representatives from every corner of the galaxy, bound by a shared commitment to justice and mutual respect. A wave of excitement swept through the hall as delegates whispered and nodded in approval. The idea of a galactic union resonated deeply with those who had endured the Empire's tyranny. Here was a vision of governance that stood in stark contrast to the Empire's autocracy, a vision of inclusion and equality. Tanaka continued, "The Union's first mission will be to assist in rebuilding the worlds devastated by war. We will provide resources, technology, and support to any planet that seeks it. No species will be left behind, and together, we will ensure that the horrors of the Empire are never repeated." As she spoke, Kairos, the Tarakian resistance leader, rose from his seat, his voice carrying across the room. "I speak for all those who fought in the shadows, who risked their lives to protect their people and their lands. For too long, our voices were silenced, our freedom stolen. But now, with this union, we can rebuild, not just our homes, but our dignity." Another wave of applause erupted, and other representatives stood to share their gratitude, their hopes, and their visions for the future. Delegates from worlds that had once viewed each other with suspicion now pledged mutual aid, forming bonds that transcended borders. In the corner of the hall, Captain Calder observed the scene, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over her. She had fought in countless battles, seen friends fall, and made sacrifices she would never forget. But in this moment, she knew it had all been worth it. Calder nodded to Admiral Tanaka, who caught her eye and returned the gesture, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had taken together. As the formal discussions continued, Chancellor Zira proposed the creation of the Galactic Charter, a document outlining the principles and goals of the Union. This charter would ensure the protection of individual rights, the prohibition of tyranny, and the defense of any member world under threat. Each delegate would sign it, a symbolic commitment to uphold these values. When the time came for the signing, the room grew silent. One by one, delegates approached the central podium, placing their handprints or marks on the holographic charter. The image of the document, illuminated and floating in the air, grew with each signature, becoming a testament to the unity of the galaxy. As Admiral Tanaka placed her own mark on the document, she felt the weight of history settle over her. Humanity, once isolated and underestimated, was now an equal partner in the galaxy's future, and they had earned their place not through conquest, but through resilience, ingenuity, and a willingness to fight for justice. With the signing complete, Chancellor Zira addressed the Assembly one final time. "The Galactic Union is not a final destination. It is a beginning. Together, we will chart a course into the unknown, bound not by fear or oppression, but by hope and cooperation." The Assembly concluded, and the delegates mingled, discussing plans for collaboration and reconstruction. Worlds that had once been adversaries now shared resources, technology, and cultural insights. Friendships were forged, and a network of alliances began to take shape, stronger than anything the Empire had ever achieved. Outside the Grand Hall, Admiral Tanaka and Chancellor Zira walked together, taking in the beauty of the Avori capital and the countless ships from all over the galaxy now docked in orbit. They watched as soldiers from different species shared stories, laughter, and even meals, a sight that only a year before would have been unimaginable. As they walked, Tanaka spoke, her voice filled with quiet reflection. "I never imagined we'd see this day. We've won the battle, but we're just beginning the real work." Zira nodded, her serene face softened by a smile. "The challenges ahead will be many, but today we have proven that even the deepest divisions can be healed. The galaxy is resilient, Admiral, and with the Union, we have a chance to create something lasting." In the days that followed, the Galactic Union set to work, coordinating relief efforts, dismantling the remnants of the Empire's oppressive structures, and establishing new institutions to protect each member world. Scientists and scholars from different species shared knowledge, advancing technology and medicine at an unprecedented pace. Cultural exchanges blossomed, bringing people together in ways that enriched the lives of all involved. As humanity and its allies looked to the future, they were reminded of the sacrifices that had brought them here. Memorials were erected on countless worlds, honoring those who had fallen in the fight for freedom. But the galaxy's gaze was firmly set on the horizon, where new possibilities awaited. Back on Earth, In a quiet moment, Admiral Tanaka visited one of these memorials. She stood before the names of those who had given their lives in the conflict, her heart heavy yet filled with gratitude. They had not fought in vain. Their courage had inspired a galaxy and had left an indelible mark on history. As she turned to leave, Tanaka paused, looking up at the stars. She thought of all the worlds now united in a common purpose, all the people free to shape their destinies, and a smile touched her lips. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as rulers or conquerors, but as partners in an interstellar community that had chosen to rise above division and fear. This was the dawn of a new era, and the galaxy would never be the same. The age of oppression had ended, and the age of cooperation had begun, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of countless worlds, a legacy of unity, resilience, and peace that would echo across the stars for generations to come.